Marcus Sterling looked at his watch and pressed harder on the gas pedal. He was already late for his meeting in Denver, and the dark clouds above looked ready to drop snow. His bright blue Bugatti Chiron raced up the mountain road, its engine purring like a giant cat. The car had cost him $3 million, but Marcus never worried about money. He owned one of the biggest tech companies in America, and money was just numbers on his bank account. The road twisted and turned through tall pine trees. Marcus loved this route because it was empty and fast. No traffic lights, no slow drivers, just him and his expensive machine. He had driven this way many times before, always making it to Denver in record time. Today felt different, though. The wind was getting stronger, and he could see snowflakes starting to fall. Marcus reached for his coffee cup and took a sip. It was still hot, just the way he liked it. His personal assistant had prepared everything perfectly, as always. The car's leather seats were warm, the music was playing softly, and the heater kept the cold mountain air outside where it belonged. Life was good when you had money to make everything perfect. The Bugatti's dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of small screens showed different information about the car. The speed, the engine temperature, the fuel level, even the air pressure in the tires. Marcus barely looked at them anymore. The car was so smart that it could almost drive itself. It had more computers than some small offices, and every system was connected to every other system. Snow began falling harder now. The flakes were big and wet, sticking to the windshield before the wipers swept them away. Marcus turned up the heat a little more and kept driving. He had been caught in snow before, and the Bugatti handled it perfectly. The car's computer system adjusted everything automatically. The traction control, the suspension, even the way the engine delivered power to the wheels. It was like having a team of engineers sitting in the car with him. Marcus thought about the meeting waiting for him in Denver. The board of directors wanted to discuss the company's next big project. They were planning to build a new factory that would create thousands of jobs. It was the kind of meeting that could change everything, and Marcus needed to be there to convince them it was the right choice. Missing this meeting was not an option. The snow was falling so hard now that Marcus had to slow down. The windshield wipers were working as fast as they could, but they could barely keep up. The road was starting to disappear under a blanket of white. Marcus had never seen weather change so quickly. 1 minute the sun was shining, and now it looked like a blizzard was starting. He pressed a button on the steering wheel to call his assistant. The car's phone system was supposed to connect automatically, but nothing happened. He tried again, pressing the button harder this time. Still nothing. That was strange. The phone always worked perfectly. Marcus looked at the small screen that showed his phone signal. It said, "No service" in red letters. The car began to feel different. At first, Marcus thought it was just the snow making the road slippery, but then he noticed that the steering wheel was getting harder to turn. The engine sound changed too, becoming rougher and less smooth. The dashboard screens started flashing yellow warning lights, then orange ones, then red ones. Marcus pulled over to the side of the road and put the car in park. He turned off the engine and waited a few seconds, then tried to start it again. This was what his father had taught him to do with old cars when they acted up. Turn them off and turn them back on. But the Bugatti was not an old car. It was supposed to be the most advanced car in the world. The engine turned over once, twice, then stopped completely. The dashboard went dark except for one red light that said, "System error." Marcus tried the key again, but this time nothing happened at all. No sound, no lights, nothing. It was as if the car had simply decided to die. Marcus sat in the sudden silence and looked around. The snow was coming down so hard that he could barely see the trees on the other side of the road. The wind was howling now, rocking the car slightly from side to side. He was alone on a mountain road in the middle of a snowstorm, and his $3 million car would not start. He tried his cell phone, holding it up to get a better signal. The screen showed no bars. The mountains were too high and the storm too strong for any signal to get through. Marcus had always been able to solve problems by making phone calls. Call his assistant, call his lawyers, call his engineers. But now he could not call anyone. The car was getting cold already. Without the engine running, the heater was not working. Marcus could see his breath starting to fog up the windows. He was wearing an expensive suit, perfect for a boardroom, but not very warm for sitting in a broken car during a snowstorm. Marcus looked at all the buttons and screens in the car. Surely one of them could fix whatever was wrong. He pressed the engine start button again and again, but nothing happened. He tried different combinations of buttons, hoping to find some kind of reset switch. The car had been working perfectly just minutes ago. How could it suddenly stop working completely? Outside, the wind was getting stronger. The snow was piling up on the windshield, and Marcus realized he might be stuck here for hours. His important meeting in Denver was getting further and further away. More importantly, he was starting to wonder if he might be in real danger. The road was empty, the weather was getting worse, and his amazing car had become nothing more than an expensive metal box. Marcus had built his fortune by solving problems that seemed impossible. He had started his company in a garage and turned it into a billion-dollar business. He was used to being in control, used to having answers. But sitting in his dead car on a mountain road, surrounded by falling snow and howling wind, Marcus Sterling felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt helpless. Marcus sat in his cold car for what felt like hours. The snow kept falling, and the wind kept howling. His expensive suit was not keeping him warm anymore, and he was starting to shiver. He kept trying his phone every few minutes, holding it up high, hoping for just one bar of signal. Finally, after trying for the 20th time, he saw a single bar appear on the screen. He quickly called his personal assistant, Sarah. She answered on the first ring, her voice full of worry when she heard where he was and what had happened. Marcus explained that his car had completely stopped working and that he was stuck on the mountain road in a snowstorm. Sarah immediately went into action, making calls and arranging help. The first person to arrive was Jake Morrison, the head engineer from the car company. Jake had designed some of the systems in Marcus's Bugatti, and he knew more about expensive cars than almost anyone in the world. He drove up in a big truck with chains on the tires, carrying boxes full of computer equipment and diagnostic tools. Jake looked at the car and shook his head. He had never seen a Bugatti just stop working for no reason. These cars were tested in every possible condition before they were sold. He connected his laptop to the car's computer system and started running tests. Numbers and graphs filled his screen as the computer tried to figure out what was wrong. "The strange thing is," Jake said, typing on his keyboard, "all the basic systems show up as working fine. The engine is good, the electrical system is good, the computer brain is responding. But something is telling the car not to start. It's like the car thinks there's a dangerous problem, so it won't turn on to protect itself." Jake worked for 2 hours, running every test he could think of. He checked the engine, the transmission, the computer systems, even the security system that was supposed to prevent car theft. Everything looked normal on his computer screen, but the car still would not start. Jake had never seen anything like it in 20 years of working on cars. While Jake was working, Sarah had called more help. Next to arrive was Dr. Hans Müller, a computer expert who had flown in from Germany on Marcus's private jet. Dr. Müller was one of the people who had written the software that controlled the car's artificial intelligence system. If anyone could fix a computer problem, it was him. Dr. Müller brought even more equipment than Jake had. He set up a small table next to the car and covered it with laptops, cables, and strange-looking electronic devices. He spoke with a thick German accent and used technical words that Marcus could not understand. But Marcus did not care about understanding. He just wanted his car to work. "The AI system is very complex," Dr. Müller explained as he worked. "It monitors hundreds of sensors throughout the car. Temperature, pressure, vibration, electrical current, everything. If even one sensor reports something unusual, the AI can shut down the entire car to prevent damage." Dr. Müller spent 3 hours going through every line of computer code in the car's brain. He found small errors and fixed them, updated software that was slightly out of date, and even rewrote some of the programming to make it work better. But when he was finished and tried to start the car, nothing happened. The engine was still completely dead. By now it was getting dark and the snow was still falling. Marcus was getting more worried and more angry. He had called the most expensive experts in the world, and none of them could fix his car. The meeting in Denver was definitely missed now, and Marcus was starting to wonder if he would be spending the night on the mountain. Sarah called again with more help. This time it was a whole team of people from the research center where the car's AI system had been developed. They arrived in a big van full of equipment that looked like it belonged in a science laboratory. The team leader was a young woman named Dr. Lisa Chen, who had a PhD in artificial intelligence and had worked on military computer systems. Dr. Chen's team set up equipment all around the car. They had sensors, cameras, and computers that could see things the human eye could not see. They measured the electrical signals in every wire, checked for magnetic fields that might confuse the car's computers, and even used a special camera that could see heat to look for parts of the car that might be too hot or too cold. "We're looking for anything that might be causing the AI to think there's an emergency," Dr. Chen explained. "The car's computer is designed to be very careful. If it senses any danger at all, it will shut everything down rather than risk hurting the driver or damaging the engine." The team worked until late into the night. They found a few small problems and fixed them. One sensor was reading the outside temperature wrong. Another sensor that measured the car's speed was giving slightly incorrect information. They updated software, replaced a small computer chip, and even cleaned some electrical connections that had gotten dirty. After each fix, they tried to start the car. Each time, Marcus felt hopeful that this would be the solution. Each time, the car remained dead. Dr. Chen looked more and more puzzled as the night went on. Her equipment was telling her that everything was working perfectly, but the car obviously was not working at all. Marcus was now very angry and very cold. He had spent thousands of dollars bringing the world's best car experts to this mountain road. Each expert had been confident they could fix the problem quickly. Each expert had failed completely. The storm was getting worse, and Marcus was beginning to think he might have to abandon his expensive car and find another way home. Jake, Dr. Muller, and Dr. Chen stood together in the snow, looking at the car and shaking their heads. They had tried everything they could think of. They had used the most advanced diagnostic equipment available. They had checked and double-checked every system in the car. By all their measurements, the Bugatti should be running perfectly. "I've never seen anything like this," Jake admitted. "Every test says the car is fine, but it won't start. It's like the car is possessed or something." Dr. Muller nodded in agreement. "The computer system is responding normally to all our commands. But something is overriding our attempts to start the engine. Something we cannot detect with our equipment." Dr. Chen looked at her data one more time. "According to our sensors, there is no reason this car should not be running. Every component is functioning within normal parameters, but obviously something is very wrong." Marcus stood in the falling snow, watching three of the world's most expensive experts admit they could not fix his car. He had always believed that money could solve any problem. Find the right expert, pay them enough money, and any problem would go away. But tonight on this mountain road, Marcus was learning that some problems could not be solved just by throwing money at them. The experts packed up their equipment, apologizing and promising to think about the problem more. They offered to have the car towed to a shop where they could work on it more carefully. But Marcus did not want to wait days for an answer. He wanted his car fixed now, and he wanted to get off this mountain before the storm got any worse. As the experts drove away, Marcus was left alone again with his broken car and no idea what to do next. Marcus sat alone in his cold car, feeling more frustrated than he had felt in years. The snow was still falling, and the wind was still howling. The expensive experts had all given up and gone home, leaving him stranded on the mountain road with a $3 million piece of junk. He tried his phone again, but the signal was too weak to make any calls. The inside of the car was getting very cold now. Marcus could see his breath every time he exhaled, and his hands were starting to feel numb even though he kept them in his pockets. His expensive suit was not designed for sitting in a freezing car during a blizzard. He was starting to think he might have to walk down the mountain to find help, even though that seemed very dangerous in this weather. Just as Marcus was considering leaving his car behind, he saw headlights coming up the road through the snow. At first he felt relieved, thinking maybe one of the experts had come back with a new idea. But as the vehicle got closer, He could see it was not the fancy trucks the experts had been driving. This was an old pickup truck that looked like it had seen better days. The pickup truck was painted red, but the paint was faded and rusty in several places. One of the headlights was slightly dimmer than the other, and the truck made a rattling sound as it drove. It moved slowly and carefully through the snow, and Marcus could hear the driver changing gears as the truck climbed the steep road. This was clearly not another expensive expert coming to help him. The truck pulled over and stopped about 20 feet away from Marcus's car. The engine kept running, and Marcus could see exhaust steam coming from the tailpipe in the cold air. The driver's door opened, and someone got out slowly and carefully. Marcus watched through his fogged-up window as the person walked toward his car. It was a woman, and she was very pregnant. Marcus could tell, even through her heavy winter coat, that she was going to have a baby soon. She walked carefully in the snow, holding onto the side of the truck for support. In her other hand, she carried a small metal toolbox that looked old and well-used. She appeared to be in her late 20s, with dark hair that was tied back in a simple ponytail. The woman approached Marcus's car and knocked gently on the driver's side window. Marcus rolled the window down a few inches, and cold air immediately rushed into the car. The woman bent down slightly so she could see him better, and Marcus noticed that she looked tired and worried. "Excuse me, sir," she said in a soft voice, with a slight accent. "I saw your car here, and I noticed all the people who were working on it earlier. Are you having car trouble? My name is Elena Rodriguez, and I know a little bit about cars. Maybe I can help you." Marcus looked at Elena and felt a mixture of emotions. Part of him was grateful that someone had stopped to help, but another part of him was skeptical. He had just spent thousands of dollars on the world's best car experts, and none of them could fix his problem. How could a pregnant woman with an old toolbox possibly help him? "I appreciate the offer," Marcus said, "but this is a very complicated car. I've already had 3 different experts look at it, including engineers from the company that made it. They all said they'd never seen anything like this problem." Elena nodded and looked at the Bugatti with interest. Even covered in snow, it was obviously an expensive and unusual car. She had never seen one like it before, but she recognized the general shape and design as something very high-end and European. "I understand," Elena said. "I'm not an expert like the people you already had here. I just used to work as an automotive engineer before I lost my job 6 months ago. I've been doing small repair jobs since then to make some money while I wait for the baby to come. I was driving to my night job when I saw your car and thought maybe I could help." Marcus looked at Elena more carefully. Despite her simple clothes and old tools, there was something in her eyes that suggested she really did know about cars. She was not just offering to help out of kindness. She seemed genuinely interested in the problem and confident that she might be able to figure it out. "What kind of automotive engineering did you do?" Marcus asked. "I worked for 5 years at Morrison Automotive," Elena replied. "I specialized in electrical systems and computer diagnostics. I worked on everything from regular cars to race cars to experimental vehicles. I lost my job when the company downsized, but I still remember most of what I learned." Marcus recognized the name Morrison Automotive. It was a well-respected company that built custom vehicles for racing teams and wealthy collectors. If Elena had worked there for 5 years, she probably did know quite a bit about cars, even if she was not as famous as the experts he had already hired. Elena shifted her weight from one foot to the other, and Marcus noticed that standing in the snow was probably not comfortable for a pregnant woman. She was offering to help him even though she was obviously dealing with her own challenges. That took a kind of courage that Marcus had to respect. "To be honest," Elena continued, "I really need the work. I'm behind on my doctor bills for the pregnancy and I have rent due next week. If I could help you get your car running, maybe you could pay me something for my time. Even $50 would help me a lot right now." Marcus felt a strange feeling in his chest when Elena said this. Here was a pregnant woman, struggling to pay her bills, offering to help a billionaire with his broken car in the middle of a snowstorm. The contrast between their situations was so extreme that it almost seemed like a joke. But Elena was not joking. She was serious about wanting to help, and she was honest about needing the money. "The thing is," Marcus said, "these experts had very sophisticated diagnostic equipment. They found several small problems and fixed them, but the car still won't start. I'm not sure what you could do with just basic tools that they couldn't do with their computers. Elena smiled slightly. Sometimes the most sophisticated equipment can miss the most basic problems. The experts probably focused on the computer, systems, and the advanced electronics. But every car, even one this fancy, still has basic mechanical and electrical systems. Maybe the problem is something simple that got overlooked because everyone was looking for something complicated. Marcus considered this. It was true that all the experts had focused on the car's computer brain and artificial intelligence systems. They had treated the problem as if it must be very complex because the car was very complex. But what if Elena was right? What if the problem was something simple that no one had thought to check? Also, Elena added, I won't charge you anything if I can't fix it. You only pay me if I actually get your car running. So you have nothing to lose by letting me try. Marcus looked at Elena standing in the snow, holding her small toolbox and clearly uncomfortable but still willing to help. He thought about the expensive experts who had given up and gone home to their warm houses. Elena was still here, still trying, even though she had her own problems to worry about. All right, Marcus said finally. You can take a look at it. But I have to warn you, this car has more computers than some office buildings. It's not like working on a regular car. Elena's face lit up with a smile. Thank you for giving me a chance. I promise I'll be very careful with your car. Can you pop the hood so I can see the engine? As Marcus reached for the hood release, he realized that he was putting his faith in a pregnant woman with a $50 toolbox after losing faith in experts with $50,000 equipment. It seemed crazy, but at this point, he was willing to try anything. Maybe sometimes the best solutions came from the most unexpected places. Marcus pressed the hood release button, but nothing happened. He tried it several times, pushing harder each time, but the hood stayed closed. This was another reminder of how completely dead his car was. Even the simple electric mechanism that opened the hood was not working. There should be a manual release under the dashboard, Elena said, bending down to look through the passenger window. Most cars have a backup way to open the hood if the electric system fails. Marcus searched around the driver's area and found a small lever near his left knee. When he pulled it, he heard a soft click from the front of the car. Elena walked around to the front and lifted the hood, propping it open with the hood support rod. Steam rose from the engine bay as the warm metal met the cold air. Elena took a small flashlight from her toolbox and began looking at the engine. Marcus got out of the car to watch her work, even though the cold air hit him like a slap in the face. He was curious to see what she would do differently from the experts who had already examined everything. As Elena began her examination, Marcus heard another vehicle approaching. This time it was Dr. Muller, the German computer expert, returning in his rental car. He had forgotten one of his diagnostic computers and was coming back to get it. When Dr. Muller saw Elena looking at the engine, he got out of his car with an expression of disbelief and annoyance. "What is this woman doing?" Dr. Muller asked Marcus in his thick accent. "I hope you are not letting some random person touch your expensive car. This vehicle has very sensitive electronic components that can be damaged by someone who does not know what they are doing." Marcus felt embarrassed. Dr. Mueller was right that Elena looked out of place working on a $3 million car. Her simple clothes, her pregnancy, and her basic tools made her seem like she had no business being there. But Marcus had already given her permission to look, and he did not want to be rude by telling her to stop. "She says she used to be an automotive engineer," Marcus explained weakly. "I thought maybe she could spot something that was missed." Dr. Mueller laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. "An automotive engineer? Look at her. She is pregnant and carries her tools in a lunchbox. This is not a person who works on advanced vehicles. This is probably someone who changes oil at a quick-service garage." Elena heard what Dr. Mueller was saying, but she did not stop working or look up from the engine. She continued shining her flashlight into different areas, following wires and checking connections. Marcus could see that her face had turned red, but he was not sure if it was from embarrassment, anger, or just the cold. "Furthermore," Dr. Mueller continued, "we have already examined every component in this engine bay with professional diagnostic equipment. We have tested every wire, every sensor, every computer module. There is nothing this woman can see that we did not see with our instruments. Dr. Muller retrieved his forgotten computer from where he had left it near the car. As he packed it into his carrying case, he shook his head and made more comments about letting unqualified people work on expensive vehicles. His tone was condescending and dismissive, as if Elena was not even worth talking to directly. I strongly advise you to make her stop, Dr. Muller said to Marcus. If she damages something while playing around under the hood, your warranty could be voided. Then you will have an even bigger problem than just a car that will not start. Elena finally looked up from the engine. Her face was indeed red, and Marcus could see that she was fighting back tears. But when she spoke, her voice was calm and professional. I understand your concerns, she said to Dr. Muller. I am being very careful not to touch anything I should not touch. I am just looking and trying to understand how the systems are connected. I will not do anything that could cause damage. Dr. Muller snorted. You will not do anything that could cause damage because you will not do anything at all. You cannot possibly understand the complexity of this vehicle's integrated systems. This is not some pickup truck that you can fix by hitting it with a hammer. Marcus felt uncomfortable watching this interaction. Dr. Muller was being unnecessarily cruel to Elena, who was just trying to help. But at the same time, Marcus was starting to have doubts about his decision to let Elena examine the car. Maybe Dr. Muller was right. Maybe he was being foolish to trust someone who looked so different from the polished experts he was used to dealing with. Perhaps I should have the car towed to our facility, Dr. Muller suggested. We can examine it more thoroughly in a controlled environment with proper equipment. This roadside troubleshooting is not appropriate for a vehicle of this caliber. Elena closed the hood quietly and picked up her toolbox. Maybe the gentleman is right, she said to Marcus. Maybe I am not the right person to help you with this. I do not want to cause you any problems or make things worse. As Elena started walking back toward her truck, Marcus felt a strange mixture of relief and disappointment. Relief because Dr. Muller was probably right about Elena being out of her league. Disappointment because Elena had seemed genuinely interested in helping, and he had found her honesty about needing money refreshing after dealing with experts who charged thousands of dollars just to look at the car. But as Elena reached her truck, Marcus looked at his watch and realized how desperate his situation really was. It was now past midnight. The snow was still falling heavily, and the road was becoming more dangerous by the hour. Dr. Muller's suggestion to tow the car to a facility would mean waiting until morning at the earliest, and probably much longer than that. More importantly, Marcus had a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow afternoon that he absolutely could not miss. The company's future depended on the decisions that would be made in that meeting. If Marcus was not there to present his case, the board might vote against the new factory project that he had been working on for 2 years. Dr. Muller finished packing his equipment and got back into his rental car. I will call you tomorrow. About towing arrangements, he told Marcus through his open window. Do not let anyone else touch the vehicle before we can examine it properly. As Dr. Muller drove away, his taillights disappearing into the snow, Marcus looked at Elena, sitting in her truck. She had started the engine and was probably getting ready to leave and continue on to whatever job she had been driving to when she stopped to help him. Marcus realized that he was about to be alone again on the mountain road with a broken car and no options. The professional experts had all given up. Towing the car would take too long, and Elena, the only person who was still willing to try to help him, was about to drive away because of Dr. Muller's harsh words. Standing in the falling snow, feeling more desperate than he had felt in years, Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. He walked over to Elena's truck and knocked on the driver's side window. When she rolled it down, he could see that she had been crying. Elena, Marcus said, I would like you to take another look at my car. I know Dr. Muller thinks it is a bad idea, but I am running out of options. If there is any chance you can figure out what is wrong, I need you to try. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Are you sure? I do not want to get you in trouble with the experts you hired. Right now, Marcus said. Those experts are sleeping in warm beds while I am stuck on a mountain in a snowstorm. You are the only person still willing to help me. If you think you can figure this out, I want you to try. Elena turned off her truck engine and got out with her toolbox. "All right," she said. "Let me take a more careful look. Maybe I can find something that the computers missed." As Elena walked back toward the Bugatti, Marcus felt like he was taking a huge gamble. He was choosing to trust a pregnant stranger. With basic tools over the advice of world-class experts with advanced equipment, it seemed like a crazy decision. But at this point, crazy might be exactly what he needed. Elena opened the hood again and took out her flashlight. This time, instead of looking at the obvious parts like the engine and the computer modules, she started tracing the car's basic electrical wires. She followed them from the battery to different parts of the car, checking each connection point carefully. "The experts were probably right that all the major systems are working," Elena explained to Marcus as she worked. "But sometimes a car won't start because of something very simple that the computers can't detect. A loose wire, a blown fuse, or moisture in the wrong place." Marcus watched Elena work and noticed that her approach was completely different from the experts. While they had focused on the car's artificial intelligence and computer systems, Elena was looking at the basic electrical foundation that everything else was built on. She moved slowly and methodically, checking things that the sophisticated diagnostic equipment might have overlooked. Elena traced wires from the battery to the starter, from the starter to the ignition system, and from the ignition system to various sensors around the engine. She used her flashlight to look into small spaces that were hard to see, and she gently touched connections to make sure they were tight and secure. "The thing about very smart cars," Elena said as she worked, "is that they can sometimes be too smart for their own good. If the computer brain thinks there is any danger, it will shut down everything to protect the car. But sometimes the brain makes mistakes about what is dangerous." After about 30 minutes of tracing wires, Elena moved to the passenger side of the engine bay. This was an area that none of the experts had spent much time examining, because it contained mostly basic electrical components, rather than sophisticated computer modules. Elena shined her flashlight along the firewall, which was the metal barrier between the engine and the passenger compartment. Suddenly, Elena stopped moving. She held her flashlight steady on one spot and looked more closely. Then she knelt down in the snow to get a better angle, even though this was clearly uncomfortable for a pregnant woman. "Marcus," Elena called out, "can you come look at this?" Marcus walked around to where Elena was kneeling and looked where she was pointing her flashlight. At first he did not see anything unusual, just more wires, metal panels, and electrical components. But then Elena pointed to a small area near the bottom of the firewall. "Do you see that little puddle of water?" Elena asked. Marcus looked more carefully and saw what Elena was talking about. There was indeed a small amount of water pooled in a low spot near several electrical connections. It was not much water, maybe just a few tablespoons, but it was definitely there. "I see it," Marcus said. "But how did water get there? The engine bay is supposed to be sealed." Elena stood up slowly, using the car for support. "It's probably melted snow. When you were driving, snow got into the engine bay, which is normal. But usually it melts and drains away harmlessly. This time it looks like the water collected in this low spot instead of draining." Elena took a small rag from her toolbox and carefully soaked up the water. When she was done, she used her flashlight to examine the area more closely. What she found made her smile for the first time since Dr. Muller had been rude to her. "Here's the problem," Elena said, pointing to a specific spot. "See this electrical junction box? It's where several important wires come together. The water was sitting right against it, and when water touches electrical connections, it can cause all kinds of problems." Marcus looked at the junction box. Elena was pointing too. It was a small black plastic box about the size of a deck of cards. Several thick wires went into it, and several other wires came out of it. The box looked perfectly normal to Marcus, but Elena seemed excited about finding it. "This junction box controls some of the communication between the engine and the computer brain," Elena explained. "If water got into this box even just a tiny bit, it could confuse all the computer systems. The brain would think there was a serious electrical problem and shut down the whole car to prevent damage." Elena carefully examined the junction box with her flashlight. She found that one edge of the plastic cover was not sitting flush against the base. There was a tiny gap, no bigger than the edge of a coin, where moisture could have seeped in. The water probably got in through this little gap, Elena said. It's such a small opening that the experts might not have noticed it, and their computer diagnostic equipment would not detect water inside the junction box because the sensors that report problems to the computer brain are also affected by the water. Marcus was starting to understand. So the computer brain can't tell the diagnostic equipment what's wrong because the water is interfering with the communication between them. Exactly, Elena said. It's like if you were trying to call someone to tell them your phone was broken. You can't make the call because the phone is broken, so the person you're calling doesn't know there's a problem. Elena opened her toolbox and took out a small screwdriver. She carefully removed the 4 tiny screws that held the junction box cover in place. When she lifted the cover, Marcus could see small droplets of water inside the box, clinging to the electrical connections. There's our problem, Elena said with satisfaction. Not very much water, but enough to cause big trouble. Elena took another rag from her toolbox and very carefully dried the inside of the junction box. She was extremely gentle, making sure not to disturb any of the wire connections. When she was satisfied that everything was completely dry, she examined the electrical connections to make sure none of them had been damaged by the water. Everything looks good, Elena reported. The water didn't hurt anything. It was just confusing the signals between the different computer systems. Elena put the junction box cover back in place and tightened the screws. She also used a small tube of electrical sealant from her toolbox to seal the gap where the water had entered. The sealant would prevent this problem from happening again. Now, Elena said, standing up and wiping her hands on her rag, we need to reset the computer brain so it knows the problem has been fixed. The brain is probably still thinking there's an electrical emergency, so it won't try to start the car even though the problem is gone. Elena walked around to the driver's side of the car. Marcus, can you get in and turn the key to the on position? Don't try to start the engine yet, just turn it to on so the electrical systems wake up. Marcus got into the car and turned the key. For the first time in hours, the dashboard lit up with all its normal displays. Warning lights flashed on briefly, then went off as the computer systems checked themselves. Elena watched the lights carefully, and when they finished their startup sequence, she nodded with approval. Good, Elena said. Now we need to disconnect the battery for about 30 seconds. This will force the computer brain to completely reset itself and forget about the water problem. Elena used a wrench from her toolbox to loosen the connection on the car's battery. She waited exactly 30 seconds, counting out loud, then reconnected the battery cable and tightened it securely. Now try starting the car, Elena said. Marcus held his breath and turned the key. The engine turned over once, twice, and then roared to life with a deep, powerful sound that was the most beautiful thing Marcus had heard all day. All the dashboard lights showed normal readings, and the heater immediately began blowing warm air. Marcus could hardly believe it. After hours of being stranded, after thousands of dollars spent on expert diagnostics, after being told the problem was too complex to solve on the roadside, Elena had fixed his car in less than an hour, using basic tools and simple reasoning. Elena closed the hood and packed up her toolbox, smiling broadly despite the cold and snow. She had found a problem that 3 teams of experts had missed, and she had fixed it using knowledge and techniques that cost nothing but required real understanding of how cars actually work. Marcus sat in his running car, feeling the warmth, return and listening to the smooth sound of the engine, and realized that sometimes the most sophisticated solutions were not the best solutions. Sometimes what you needed was someone who understood the basics so well that they could see what others had overlooked. Marcus sat in his running car, almost unable to believe what had just happened. The engine was purring smoothly, the heater was warming the cabin, and all the dashboard lights showed normal readings. After being stranded for hours in a snowstorm, his Bugatti was working perfectly again, and it had been fixed by a pregnant woman with a $50 toolbox. Elena was packing up her simple tools, moving carefully in the snow. Marcus got out of the car, leaving the engine running because he was afraid that if he turned it off, it might not start again. He walked over to Elena, who was putting her small flashlight and screwdriver back into her metal toolbox. "Elena," Marcus said. "I can't believe you actually fixed it." The expert spent hours with computers and diagnostic equipment and couldn't figure out what was wrong. "How did you know to look for water in that junction box?" Elena smiled as she closed her toolbox. "When I was tracing the electrical wires, I noticed that the ground was slightly wet under that part of the car. It was just a small damp spot, but it made me think that water might be collecting somewhere it shouldn't be. The experts probably didn't notice because they were focused on their computer screens instead of looking at the actual physical car." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "But how did you know that a little bit of water could cause such a big problem? The car's computer systems are supposed to be waterproof." "They are mostly waterproof," Elena explained. "But that junction box is in a place where the designers probably didn't expect water to collect. It's a very small gap in the weatherproofing, maybe caused by the car settling slightly as it aged, or by a manufacturing variation. The water couldn't hurt the wires themselves, but it could interfere with the electrical signals." Elena paused and looked at the Bugatti with its engine running smoothly. "The really clever part is how the car's artificial intelligence responded to the problem. When it detected unusual electrical signals from that junction box, it assumed there was a serious fault that could damage the engine. So it shut down everything to protect the car. It was actually doing exactly what it was designed to do." Marcus was starting to understand why the experts had been so confused. So the diagnostic computers couldn't find the problem because the car's brain was deliberately hiding it from them? "Not hiding exactly," Elena said, "but the car's safety systems were preventing the diagnostic equipment from getting accurate information. It's like trying to diagnose someone's health while they're unconscious. The patient can't tell you what hurts because they're not awake to feel it." Marcus thought about the hours he had spent watching expensive experts run test after test. Why didn't Jake or Dr. Muller or Dr. Chen think to look for something simple like water damage? Elena picked up her toolbox and started walking toward her truck. When you're a specialist in complex systems, you tend to look for complex problems. They saw a very sophisticated car that wasn't working, so they assumed the solution must be very sophisticated too. Sometimes being an expert in complicated things makes it harder to see simple problems. Marcus followed Elena to her truck. "But you were an automotive engineer too. Why did you think to look for a simple solution when they didn't?" Elena opened the driver's door of her truck but didn't get in yet. "I think it's because I've been doing basic repair work for the past 6 months. When you're trying to fix someone's 20-year-old car for $50, you learn to look for simple problems first. You can't afford to spend hours on complex diagnostics when the customer can only pay you for 1 hour of work." Marcus realized that Elena's recent experience doing small repair jobs had actually prepared her better for this problem than the expert's advanced training. While they had been thinking about artificial intelligence and computer networks, she had been thinking about the basic electrical and mechanical systems that every car depends on. "Also," Elena continued, "being pregnant has taught me to pay attention to small details that might seem unimportant. When you're responsible for a baby, you notice little things that could become big problems. I've gotten very good at spotting small leaks, unusual sounds, or things that are slightly out of place." Elena got into her truck and started the engine. Marcus realized that she was getting ready to leave, and he suddenly felt panicked. This woman had just saved him from spending the night stranded on a mountain, had saved his important business meeting, and had solved a problem that world-class experts couldn't solve, and she was about to drive away as if nothing special had happened. "Wait," Marcus said quickly. "How much do I owe you for fixing my car?" Elena looked embarrassed. "You said before the experts came that you would pay $50 if I could help. But after hearing what those experts probably charged you, $50 seems like too much for me to ask for." Marcus stared at Elena. The German expert alone had probably cost Marcus $5,000 for his few hours of work. Dr. Chen's team had probably cost even more. Jake's time and the emergency call-out fee had probably been another several $1,000s. In total, Marcus had probably spent $15,000 on experts who had failed to fix his car. "Elena," Marcus said, $50 is not nearly enough. Those experts cost me thousands of dollars and didn't solve anything. You solved the problem in less than an hour. Elena shook her head. But they had expensive equipment and years of specialized training. I just got lucky and noticed something they missed. It wasn't luck, Marcus insisted. You succeeded because you understood the basics better than they understood the complexities. You knew how to think about the problem differently. Marcus pulled out his wallet and looked inside. He had about $300 in cash, which was all he usually carried. He took out all of it and offered it to Elena. This still isn't enough, Marcus said. But it's all the cash I have with me, right now. Can I get your contact information so I can send you more money when I get home? Elena looked at the $300 like it was $1 million. Marcus could see tears forming in her eyes again, but this time they seemed to be happy. Tears. This is too much, Elena said. This is more money than I usually make in 2 weeks at my cleaning job. Elena, Marcus said gently, you just saved me from missing the most important business meeting of my life. You solved a problem that stumped 3 teams of experts. This money doesn't even begin to cover what your help was worth to me. Elena took the money with shaking hands. Thank you so much. This will pay for my doctor visits and my rent. You don't know how much this means to me right now. As Elena put the money in her purse, Marcus realized that something important had happened to him tonight. He had learned that expertise and expensive equipment were not always the answer to difficult problems. Sometimes what you needed was someone who could see the forest instead of just the trees. Someone who understood the fundamentals so well that they could spot what others had missed. More importantly, Marcus had met someone who was willing to help a stranger in trouble, even when she had troubles of her own. Elena had stopped on a dangerous mountain road in a snowstorm to help someone she had never met, even though she was pregnant and struggling financially. That kind of character was something that no amount of money could buy. Elena, Marcus said as she prepared to drive away, can I ask you something? What kind of work are you looking for? I mean, what would your ideal job be? Elena thought for a moment. I'd love to get back into automotive engineering. But most companies want people with current experience. It's hard to find someone willing to hire an engineer who's been out of the field for 6 months and is about to have a baby. Marcus smiled. For the first time in a very long day, he had an idea that excited him. Marcus stood in the falling snow, looking at Elena sitting in her old pickup truck, and felt like his whole understanding of the world had just changed. For years, he had believed that the best solutions came from the most expensive experts with the most advanced equipment. Tonight he had learned that sometimes the best solutions came from someone who truly understood the basics and could think clearly under pressure. Elena, Marcus said, before you drive away, can you tell me more about your background? I'm curious about your engineering experience. Elena turned off her truck engine, sensing that Marcus wanted to have a longer conversation. I graduated from Colorado State University with a degree in mechanical engineering, specializing in automotive systems. I worked for Morrison Automotive for 5 years, mostly on custom electrical systems for race cars and specialty vehicles. What kind of projects did you work on? Marcus asked. I designed electrical systems for everything from NASCAR vehicles to custom cars for movie studios. I also worked on some experimental electric vehicles and hybrid systems. My specialty was troubleshooting complex electrical problems that other engineers couldn't solve. Marcus was impressed. Morrison Automotive was known for hiring only the best engineers, and Elena's experience with experimental vehicles meant she had worked on cutting-edge technology. Why did you leave Morrison? Elena's expression became sad. I didn't leave by choice. The company lost several big contracts last year and had to lay off about 30% of their staff. I was one of the newer employees, so I was included in the layoffs. That was 6 months ago, right when I found out I was pregnant. Have you been looking for engineering work since then? I've applied to dozens of companies, Elena said, but most of them want engineers who are currently working in the field. When they see that I've been unemployed for 6 months, they assume there's something wrong with my abilities. And when they find out I'm pregnant, they worry about maternity, leave and time off for the baby. Marcus felt angry hearing this. Elena had just demonstrated engineering skills that surpassed those of experts with international reputations. The idea that companies would reject her because of employment gaps or pregnancy seemed both unfair and stupid. "What have you been doing for work?" Marcus asked. "Whatever I can find," Elena replied. "I clean offices at night, I do small car repairs, for neighbors, and I help people with basic electrical problems around their houses. It's enough to pay for food and my apartment, but not enough to save money or pay for all the medical bills that come with having a baby." Elena paused and looked down at her hands. "My boyfriend left when he found out about the pregnancy. He said he wasn't ready to be a father and didn't want the responsibility. So I'm dealing with everything by myself." Marcus felt a deep sense of respect for Elena. She was facing unemployment, pregnancy, financial stress, and abandonment by someone she had trusted, but she was still working hard and looking for ways to help other people. She had not become bitter or given up. Instead, she had stopped to help a stranger on a dangerous road. "Elena," Marcus said carefully, "what if I told you that I might be able to offer you a job?" Elena's eyes widened. "What kind of job? Are you in the automotive industry?" Marcus smiled. "I own a technology company called Sterling Industries. We don't make cars, but we do make electronic systems that go into cars. We design computer chips, sensors, and control systems for automotive manufacturers around the world." Elena looked confused. "But I thought you were just someone with an expensive car who got stuck in the snow." "I am that person," Marcus laughed. "But I'm also the CEO of a company that employs about 8,000 people. We're always looking for talented engineers, especially ones who understand both complex systems and practical problem solving." Elena stared at Marcus as if she could not believe what she was hearing. "Are you serious? You would consider hiring me based on tonight?" "Elena, you just solved a problem that 3 teams of experts couldn't solve. You did it with basic tools, clear thinking, and a deep understanding of how systems actually work. That's exactly the kind of talent my company needs." Marcus pulled out his business card and handed it to Elena. She looked at it carefully, reading his name and title. Her hands were shaking slightly as she realized that the man whose car she had fixed was actually a billionaire CEO. "I can't believe this," Elena said quietly. "I stopped to help someone with car trouble, and that person turns out to be the head of a major technology company." "The thing is," Marcus said, "I don't think this was just a coincidence. I think you're the kind of person who would have stopped to help anyone who was stranded, regardless of what kind of car they were driving or how much money they had. That tells me something important about your character." Elena was crying again, but these were definitely happy tears. "Mr. Sterling, I would love the chance to work for your company, but I need to be honest with you. I'm going to have a baby in about 3 months. That means I'll need time off for maternity leave, and I might not be able to work as many hours as other employees." Marcus waved away her concerns. "Elena, good engineers are hard to find, and great engineers are even harder to find. If you're as talented as I think you are, we'll make whatever accommodations you need for your family situation. Great employees are worth investing in." "What kind of position would you be considering me for?" Elena asked. Marcus thought for a moment. "We have a department that specializes in troubleshooting complex problems with automotive electronic systems. When car manufacturers can't figure out why their systems aren't working properly, they send them to us for analysis." "It sounds like exactly the kind of work you're good at." Elena's face lit up with excitement. "That sounds like the perfect job for me. I love solving puzzles, especially when they involve figuring out why complex systems aren't communicating properly." "The starting salary would be about $90,000 a year," Marcus said, "with full health insurance, paid maternity leave, and opportunities for advancement based on performance." Elena looked like she might faint. $90,000? That's more than twice what I was making at Morrison Automotive. "Are you sure you're not just feeling sorry for me because I'm pregnant and unemployed?" "Elena," Marcus said seriously, "I don't make business decisions based on sympathy. I make them based on talent and results. Tonight you showed me both. You demonstrated problem-solving skills that most engineers never develop, and you did it under pressure in difficult conditions." Marcus paused and looked at his Bugatti, still running smoothly with its engine purring contentedly. "More importantly, you showed me something about myself. I've been so focused on hiring people with impressive credentials and advanced degrees that I forgot to look for people who actually know how to solve real problems. You've reminded me that the best solutions often come from understanding the fundamentals, not from having the fanciest equipment." Elena wiped her eyes and smiled. "When would you want me to start?" "How about after you have your baby and are ready to come back to work?" Marcus suggested. "That will give us time to set up the position properly and make sure we have everything arranged for your success." Elena looked down at her toolbox, then back at Marcus. "This morning I woke up worried about paying rent and buying groceries. Tonight I'm going home with enough money to pay my bills and a job offer that will change my life completely. I can't believe this is really happening." "It's happening because you earned it," Marcus said. "You saw a problem that needed solving and you solved it. That's what good engineers do." As Elena prepared to drive home to her apartment, Marcus realized that this night had changed his life too. He had learned valuable lessons about expertise, problem solving, and the importance of looking beyond appearances to find real talent. Most importantly, he had been reminded that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you least expect them, in the most unlikely circumstances. 6 months later, Marcus Sterling sat in his office on the top floor of Sterling Industries, looking out at the city skyline and thinking about how much his life had changed since that snowy night on the mountain road. The events of that evening had started a transformation in both his personal perspective and his business practices that continued to surprise him. Elena Rodriguez had given birth to a healthy baby girl named Sophia 3 months after their meeting. Elena had taken 3 months of paid maternity leave, during which Marcus had restructured his engineering department to focus more on practical problem solving and less on theoretical research. When Elena returned to work, she found a position that had been designed specifically around her strengths. Elena's new job was leading the Practical Solutions team, a group of engineers who specialized in solving real-world problems that traditional, diagnostic methods couldn't handle. The team was responsible for troubleshooting complex issues that stumped other departments, and they had quickly become one of the most valuable groups in the company. In her first 3 months back at work, Elena's team had solved 7 major problems that had been puzzling Sterling Industries clients for months. Car manufacturers from around the world were now specifically requesting that their most difficult diagnostic challenges be assigned to Elena's group. The team's success rate was impressive, but what impressed Marcus even more was their approach. Instead of relying primarily on expensive diagnostic equipment, Elena had trained her team to combine advanced technology with basic engineering principles. They learned to look at problems from multiple angles, to question their assumptions, and to never overlook simple solutions just because a problem seemed complex. The most sophisticated computers in the world are only as good as the humans who program them and interpret their results, Elena often told her team members. Sometimes the computer is wrong and sometimes the computer is right but looking at the wrong thing. A good engineer knows when to trust the computer and when to trust their own eyes and experience. Marcus had attended several of Elena's team meetings and was consistently impressed by her leadership style. She encouraged her engineers to think creatively, to challenge conventional wisdom, and to remember that every complex system was built from simple components that could fail in simple ways. The success of Elena's team had led Marcus to make broader changes throughout Sterling Industries. He had restructured the company's hiring practices to place less emphasis on prestigious degrees and more emphasis on practical problem-solving ability. He had also changed the way the company approached research and development, focusing more on solving real customer problems and less on developing impressive technologies that might not have practical applications. These changes had improved both the company's performance and its reputation. Sterling Industries was now known not just for advanced technology, but for technology that actually worked reliably in real-world conditions. Customer satisfaction had improved dramatically, and several major automotive manufacturers had signed new contracts with Sterling Industries specifically because of the company's reputation for practical engineering solutions. Marcus had also made changes in his personal life. He had started paying more attention to the people around him who might have valuable insights but lacked impressive credentials. He had discovered that some of his best ideas now came from conversations with maintenance workers, customer service representatives, and other employees who dealt directly with practical problems every day. More importantly, Marcus had developed a friendship with Elena that had enriched his life in ways he hadn't expected. Elena and baby Sophia had become regular guests at Marcus's house for dinner, and Marcus had become something like an uncle to Sophia. Watching Elena balance motherhood with her demanding career had taught Marcus about priorities and what really mattered in life. Elena had used her first year's salary to buy a reliable car, move to a better apartment, and start saving money for Sophia's future education. But more than the financial security, Elena valued the opportunity to use her engineering skills to solve meaningful problems. She often told Marcus that she felt like she was doing the most important work of her career. Before, I was designing systems for race cars that only rich people could afford, Elena had said during one of their dinners. Now I'm solving problems that affect ordinary people who just want their cars to work reliably. It feels like my engineering skills are actually making a difference in people's lives. Marcus had promoted Elena twice in her first year, recognizing both her technical contributions and her leadership abilities. Elena now managed a team of 12 engineers and was being considered for promotion to director level. Her success had also inspired other companies to reconsider their own approaches to hiring and problem-solving. The story of how Elena had fixed Marcus's Bugatti had become somewhat famous in engineering circles. Marcus had been invited to speak at several conferences about the importance of practical engineering skills, and Elena had co-authored a paper about diagnostic methodology that had been published in a major engineering journal. But perhaps the most important change was in how Marcus thought about success and expertise. He had learned that real expertise was not just about knowing the most advanced techniques or having access to the most expensive equipment. Real expertise was about understanding systems so thoroughly that you could see solutions that others missed, and having the confidence to trust your judgment even when it contradicted conventional wisdom. Marcus kept Elena's old toolbox in his office as a reminder of the lessons he had learned that night. Whenever he faced a difficult business problem, he would look at the simple tools and remember that sometimes the best solutions were also the simplest ones. One afternoon, as Marcus was preparing for a board meeting, Elena knocked on his office door. She was holding Sophia, who was now 6 months old and had become the unofficial mascot of the engineering department. "I wanted to thank you again for the opportunity you gave me," Elena said. "Not just the job, but the chance to prove that practical engineering skills are just as valuable as theoretical knowledge." Marcus smiled as he watched Sophia grab at the light reflecting off his desk. "Elena, you've proven something much more important than that. You've proven that the best solutions often come from the most unexpected places, and that real expertise is about understanding fundamentals, not just memorizing advanced techniques." Elena shifted Sophia to her other arm. "I've been thinking about that night on the mountain road. If you hadn't been willing to let me try to help, none of this would have happened. Most people in your position would have listened to the experts and told me to go away. I was desperate," Marcus admitted. "But I think there was something else too. You were the only person that night who was still willing to try when everyone else had given up. That told me something important about your character." As Elena prepared to leave for her afternoon meetings, Marcus reflected on how much his life had improved since he had learned to look beyond appearances and credentials to find real talent. Elena had not just fixed his car that night, she had fixed his understanding of what made people truly valuable. The board meeting that Marcus had been so worried about missing had gone extremely well. The factory project had been approved, and it was now providing thousands of jobs in a community that needed them. But more importantly, Marcus had learned that success in business, like success in engineering, often came from understanding the fundamentals and being willing to consider solutions that others might overlook. Looking out his office window at the city below, Marcus realized that the best decision he had ever made was trusting a pregnant woman with a $50 toolbox on a snowy mountain road. That decision had not only saved him from a night of being stranded, it had led to improvements in his company, his business practices, and his understanding of what really mattered in life. Sometimes, Marcus thought to himself, the most important breakthroughs happen not in laboratories or boardrooms, but in unexpected moments. moments when ordinary people do extraordinary things. And sometimes the most valuable expertise comes not from the most expensive consultants, but from people who understand the basics so well that they can see what everyone else has missed.